Pride in Chinatown is a beautiful celebration, and I think it has the opportunity to become so much more, to celebrate so much more than just Chinese queers, for example.
Pride in Chinatown was the first ever, in 2018, out loud and proud and visible Pride event ever in Chinatown. I think it was the first time that people had ever even seen like a rainbow flag in Chinatown.
Pride in Chinatown, I think, created an official home and an official way to celebrate the intersection of queer and Asian identities that I think are really prevalent and also special in a place like Vancouver because of the population, and also because in Chinatown, you know, the history of it being a place where folks were placed, that was undesirable land, but now that we choose to reclaim and choose to be in, it is extremely, important and relatable for queer people who have sought spaces where they belong and have found liberation and justice and joy and effervescence in a place like Chinatown.
There's not been a space, not just for queers, but for many other kinds of marginalized activities, cultures, and communities in Chinatown. So Pride in Chinatown has become kind of a container, an umbrella for what has been excluded and not part of what we normally think of as Chinatown. I mean, it has been a fairly conservative, patriarchal community. It's important to be visible.
As queer and Asian people who've been ostracized from so many, both from queer white spaces and also from, Asian spaces that are not friendly to a lot of queer and trans folks. So that space has changed a lot for me, and I think means a lot to other queer Asians as well because of it. And I think there is a tension between queer organizations in particular and traditional Chinese ones in Chinatown, but I think that folks who are able to step into spaces of decision making and folks who are able to tell stories and build relationships between these two groups who might hold tension between one another are starting to break those barriers.
The 2019 event attracted over 700 people. And what was really interesting is that many of the artists that I invited were all identified as queer. What suddenly became very interesting was what could queer Pan-Asian art look like. We've never seen it before. We've never thought about that. So for me as an artist and as a curator, wow. What happens when you put person A together with person B and they're working with opera or jazz or dance, mixing tradition, contemporary, and suddenly you have a new art form. And you have a new group of artists, and you have a new audience, and you have a new community.
There's kind of what I call like a pipeline or a journey of how folks need to come to terms with their own identity, and from that I think people can learn how to be allies and not glorify white-centered forms of anti-racism like multiculturalism, for example. So I think there's a lot to be said about how much work there has been to get to a place where we can put on an event like that, and how much farther we still need to go to make sure that folks feel safe celebrating in a space together like that.
So I think part of Chinatown reimagining is really focusing on new things, not just this preservation of the past and ongoing archiving of its history and celebration of history, which is important, but what now?
What I really just hope is that collaboration can be written within everything that we do in Chinatown. I hope that youth, especially queer youth, can continue to find a home in Chinatown where they haven't been able to find a home and culture elsewhere, so that we can keep on doing the work that we need to create more equitable communities.
Chinatown needs to be an inclusive space with a vision. It's kind of an interesting time to be engaged down here. We're in between what was and perhaps being part of shaping what might be.